You have been doing bicep curls for years, multiple times a week, different variations, different rep ranges, and different grips. But your arms still look average. You start thinking maybe it's a volume problem, or maybe you need some new exercises that you haven't tried yet, or maybe your genetics just aren't great for arms. But you know what? That's rarely what's actually going on. I've been coaching for the last decade, so most of the time it's actually an execution problem. And the reason it's an execution problem is because most people were never taught what's actually happening at the elbow when they curl. So you just got handed a dumbbell and were told to curl it. That's a recipe, not really an understanding. So today I want to take you through what's actually happening mechanically, why a lot of people get it wrong, and what you can do to actually fix it. So let's start with the elbow joint. So the elbow is basically a hinge joint. It does two main things, which is flexion and extension. Simply stating, bending and straightening of the arms. Pretty simple, but here is where it actually gets very interesting. So the elbow joint involves two bones in your forearm connecting to your upper arm, the ulna and the radius. So the ulna and the radius are actually not the elbow joint. The ulna is the one that actually forms the hinge joint with the humerus. That's your upper arm bone. And it only moves up and down. The ulna actually doesn't rotate, but the radius on the side of it, though, that is one that rotates. When you turn your palm up, that's called supination. When you turn it down, that's called pronation. And this matters a lot because of where your muscles actually attach. So you have got three main elbow flexors. The number one is the famous biceps brachii. This is the one everyone's trying to grow. It attaches to the radius, and because it attaches to the radius, it's not just flexing your elbow, it's also a powerful supinator. So it works best when your palm is facing up. The number two is the brachialis, the one that sits underneath your biceps. It is attached to the ulna, and ulna doesn't rotate. The brachialis works no matter what your hand position is in. Supinated, pro, neutral, doesn't really matter to this muscle. It's a pure elbow flexor. Number three is brachii. This actually connects your upper arm to your forearm. It's a forearm muscle, but it helps with elbow flexion, especially when you are in a neutral or pronated grip. Now, here is the key insight. So, when you supine, which means your palms are up, the radius rotates in a way that gives your biceps a really clean, direct line of pull, which means maximum mechanical advantage. So, when you pronate, palms down, like in a reverse curl, the radius rotates over the ulna, and now the biceps tendon kind of wraps around the joint. It's mechanically disadvantaged. It's still working, but it's much weaker in that position. So when people say reverse curls hits the brachialis more, that's not really what's happening. The brachialis is working almost the same, but you've just lost most of your biceps leverage. So the lift feels harder and you have to drop the weight significantly. You did not gain much, you just handicapped the strongest mover. All three of these muscles, the biceps brachii, the brachial, contribute to your arm size. In fact, the brachialis is a big muscle. It sits underneath the bicep, and when it grows, it actually pushes the biceps up, making your arms look thicker and fuller. The brake adds mass to your forearm, especially the upper forearm area. So, if your goal is bigger arms overall, you would want all of these muscles to grow. That makes sense. And here is the thing, all three muscles are working during every curl, regardless of the grip that you pick. It's not like a supinated curl shuts off the brachialis, or a pronated curl makes the biceps do zero work. What changes is the mechanical advantage each muscle has based on your grip position. So if you are in a supinated grip, the biceps has maximum leverage because of how the radius is positioned. But the brachioradialis is still absolutely working, just not the limiting factor. In a neutral or hammer grip, you have reduced the biceps mechanical advantage slightly, so now the brachialis contribute a bit more relatively, but the biceps are still working. Pronated grip, the bicep is at its weakest position mechanically because you soak the brachialis and they pick up more of the load. The biceps is still contributing, but you're also losing strength, so you're not able to lift as heavy. Think of it like this. You have got three people pulling a rope. In a supinated position, all three are pulling the whole time. So it's not just about one grip being useless. It's about understanding what you are emphasizing and whether that matches your goal. If you only ever do just reverse curls and hammer curls, you're probably undertraining your biceps relative to what it could handle. Most people do best with a mix. Heavy emphasis on supinated work for the biceps, some neutral grip work to make sure the Q gets attention too. That way, you're covering all your bases. Now, here is another thing most people don't really think about. The biceps doesn't just cross the elbow. The biceps also crosses the shoulder. That means your shoulder position affects how much the biceps can contribute. So if your shoulder is extended, which means your arm is behind your body, think of it like an inclined dumbbell curl. The bicep is stretched at shoulder. It's in a longer position, and for a lot of people, that means it can produce a little more force at the elbow. But if your shoulder is flexed, like your arm is in front of your body, think about curls. The biceps is shortened at the shoulder. Now it's already in a mechanically weaker position before you even start. Does that mean curls are bad? Absolutely not. They're one of the best exercises that you could do. It just means that it is going to fatigue faster in that position because it's starting from a shorter length. And some people love curls because they reduce the ability to cheat. That's fine. Also, because it's shortened, you feel that sensation. But if your goal is to grow your arms, I would train in a variety of ways. So why do people keep doing curls that don't serve their goal? In my experience, it's because they're chasing the feeling and not the result. They would do reverse curls because they can feel the burn. They would do hammer curls because it feels different. They would do cable curls from 17 different angles because someone online said it hits the peak. I get it. Actually feels productive. It feels like you are doing something because you're doing something new. But none of that is based on mechanics. It's based on what feels interesting in the moment. So here's the thing though. Soreness doesn't equal growth. Pump doesn't equal growth. Mechanical tension over time, that's what drives growth. But mechanical tension requires you to load the muscle properly and execute the movement with control and in. And a lot of people just don't want to do that, or at least they don't do that in the gym. They want novelty. They want to feel something new every session. They want that dopamine hit of a different exercise. And that's not really training. That's more like entertainment. So if you have been curling for years and your arms haven't changed much, I would argue the problem is the exercise. The problem is you keep switching exercises instead of learning how to execute one properly. So what can you actually do? First, if your goal is biceps brachii growth, stick with a supinated grip most of the time. Palms up, that's where the biceps has the most leverage. It can directly pull the forearms to the upper arm. The tool doesn't really matter as much. Supinated grip is. But here is where a lot of people run into trouble. They force a supinated grip on a tool that doesn't fit their structure. What do I mean? Let me explain. So, if you stand up and let your arms hang by your sides, palms facing forward, and look at your arms, there is an angle here, angle between the upper arm and the lower arm. That's what is called a carry angle. And when you fold them, they fold differently. It comes here, it goes out, it comes here, it differs from person to person. Every person has a carry angle, some less, some more. If you've got a larger carry angle and you force your hands into a straight barbell, you are fighting your own joint structure. Imagine if you want to fold here and the barbell is here, but you have to stay in this position, you can't come here. Your wrists feel off, your elbows hurt, the movement just doesn't feel right. And that's not really a strength issue, that's a structural mismatch. And everybody will feel differently. This is why single arm work tends to feel better for most people. Let your wrist rotate naturally. Your joints can move the way they are built to move. EZ bars might work well too, because when you come out of that supination, the carry angle goes away. If a straight bar consistently feels wrong, don't just push through it thinking that's being tough. That's just ignoring feedback from your body. You can switch to or cable and see if that changes things. Second, control the tempo. A lot of people just let the weight launch and drop. Now, do you need to do a super slow 5-10 seconds eccentric? Not necessarily, but controlling the tempo, especially if you're someone who is still trying to learn the execution, helps you feel where the tension is, keeps you honest with the load selection, and builds better movement quality. Once you have got that dialed in and you understand the mechanics, you can start playing with tempo. You can add some acceleration, you can add some deceleration if that serves your specific goal. But that needs to be intentional. If you are newer to training or if your execution still needs work, slowing things down is one of the best tools you have. It's safer as well. Third, be smarter about load selection. Now, the load absolutely matters, but only if you can actually execute the movement properly. If you're swinging the weight up using a ton of momentum, cutting the range of motion short, you're not really training your biceps. You're just moving weights around using the other joints. For most people, picking a weight you can control for 8 to 12 repetitions or less or more with a controlled speed and full available range of motion is going to grow your arms faster than swinging heavier dumbbells for 6 reps that didn't look like whether you're doing curl or thrust. Does that mean heavy weight is bad? No, but it has to match your ability to execute. So here is the reality. You probably don't need a new. You probably need better execution on the ones you're already doing. You probably don't need more volume. You probably need to stop wasting sets on movements you're not even doing correctly. The biceps curl isn't a complicated movement, but it does require you to understand what's happening at the joint level, pick the right tool for your structure, and execute it with some level of control. A lot of people skip all of that. They grab whatever is available, swing the weight, chase a pump, and then wonder why nothing is changing. I'm not saying that to be harsh. I have done the exact same thing. Most people have. But at some point, if you want your physique to actually reflect the work that you have been putting in, you have to start paying attention to execution. Understand the joint, respect your structure, execute with intention. That's what separates someone who is actually training from someone who is just going to the gym and going through motions. But what I can tell you is that better execution almost always leads to better results, regardless of where you start. So, if you are serious about getting into the best shape of your life, not just following plans randomly, but actually understanding how to train, check the link below and apply for coaching. Fix your execution, respect your structure, stop chasing feelings, subscribe, and see you in the next one.